Hello YouTube, Dave here again. Today I'm going to be reviewing the Starfinder Adventure, The Reach of Empire. This is part one of the three-part Against the Aeon Throne Adventure Path. And this is designed for characters starting at first level, reaching second level midway through the adventure, and they should be ending the adventure around third level. So we'll just sort of flip through the book here in a little bit, and I'll give my thoughts as well as a summary of the adventure itself. Now I will say that this review will contain spoilers, so if you are in the middle of playing this as a player, I would recommend not watching this. This is more intended for game masters looking to run the adventure itself. Also, full disclosure, Paizo Publishing did send this to me for the purposes of doing the review. However, this is not a paid sponsorship. There's no financial compensation, and Paizo has not given me any directives as to what I should or should not say in the review. They actually are looking for genuine, honest feedback, and something that again I think is really it's just nice to know that they want to know, like, genuinely what people think, and not just here's this product, make a video and be nice about it. I like the fact that they're confident enough in their work to say, be genuine and be honest. So let's just go ahead and flip through this here. I'll just flip over to the cover here, or the back cover first. So we just have sort of our basic information, so what it says is Gorillas in the Mist. Hired to transport supplies to a fog-shrouded world in the vast, the heroes discover that a small military force from the Aslanti Star Empire has invaded and occupied the Pact World colony there. The heroes must liberate the settlement from its merciless oppressors, but when they do, they learn that the Aslanti have both taken an experimental starship drive discovered on the planet and one of the colonists, an old friend of the heroes, back to the Star Empire. It just sort of gives a little bit of a breakdown as to what's in here, and this is $22.99 US for the price, and I consider that to be a pretty decent price considering everything that's in here. So let's just go ahead and sort of flip through. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 chapters, as well as some stuff on the cover. So you have, this is one of the enemy ships that the characters can interact with here. And sorry for the glare. Just gives the information there. And let's just go ahead and look through the actual booklet itself. So the basic story is that centuries ago, several ships were sent out from the Aslanti Empire, testing out like experimental drive technology. And one such ship, known as the Royal Venture, was carrying a drive called a rune drive, and essentially the ship disappeared, it vanished, and was thought to be forever lost. Recently, the Aslanti, members of the Aslanti military have been searching for some of these lost ships, and they sent out a probe that actually ended up encountering some anomaly while inside of the drift, and actually crash lands on the same planet as the Royal Venture crash landed on. Before the probe was destroyed, it did transmit the fact that there was something resembling Aslanti technology on that planet. The planet in question is the planet Nakondis, which is a recently colonized world. The colony goes by the name of Madelon's Landing. And the colony actually has one of its inhabitants is someone who the adventure wants, or the adventure is designed around the idea that this individual is connected with all of the player characters, and that is the female android researcher Sedona. Now, if you watched my session recap from earlier in the week when I actually got a chance to run an improvised session, one of the things that I did is I had Sedona be an NPC that was sort of important to that series of events, because I wanted to set up for running this adventure. But it's not something that you necessarily have to do. For example, if you want, each of the backgrounds or the themes provided in the Starfinder core rulebook have a paragraph or so explaining how Sedona may be connected to the player characters. And I'll talk a little bit about that connection sort of later on when I give my thoughts and opinions, but it does give lots of options for having her connected to the player characters. The player characters were hired to transport some supplies to the colony on board a ship that the players should sort of all have a say in designing before the adventure itself begins. When the player characters arrive to drop off these supplies and see their old friend Sedona, they're actually attacked by an unusual orbital drone. This drone is one sent from the Aslanti Empire, but when the characters sort of scan it, or after they destroy the probes if they're able to, they learn that the drones don't actually have any drift technology in them, so they were dropped off by something either from the planet or in orbit. When the characters try to land on the planet itself, if they're able to, they can sort of scan the colony and discover that there's an unusual structure in the center of town, which actually has like anti-aircraft weaponry and stuff on it. Ideally, the player characters will be landing not necessarily far away, but they'll be landing outside of the colony itself and trekking there overland, which is when they have the ability to come face to face with the new occupying force of the colony, a group of soldiers representing the Aeon Guard, which is one of the more extreme militant wings of the Aslanti Empire. The basic background is that prospective recruits are recruited when they are young children and sort of indoctrinated in the glory of serving the Empire sort of thing. So they tend to be like zealous in their fighting and will even fight to the death. From here, the characters learn that recently a ship from the Aslanti Empire has landed and has sort of annexed the planet. Along with that, they took several of the researchers that had also discovered the crash site of the Royal Venture after seeing the probe land, which landed again sort of nearby, which includes Sedona. They were all taken by the Aslanti and taken into the garrison that was set up in the middle of town. The characters have a chance to then work with a planned rebellion. So some of the citizens of the colony are looking to disrupt the Aslanti conquerors, or whatever you want to call them, and so the characters can engage in sort of like guerrilla tactics, and that's, I guess, where the phrase "guerrillas in the mist" comes from. The mist being the fact that the planet's kind of shrouded in fog that prevents like just visually being able to see from like the sky down onto the colony itself. And there's several different missions that they can go through, including things like sabotaging the moisture collector in town, taking out some of the guards as they're patrolling sort of on the outer edges of the colony, and just things like that. As time goes on and the characters sort of get more and more involved or do more and more damage, there's also some repercussions, like one of the trusted NPCs that they encounter early on actually gets captured and is potentially going to be executed if the characters don't intervene. Eventually, the characters will storm the garrison at the center of town and hopefully clear it out. They can do that again with the aid of the resistance to a certain extent if they, are able to build up enough goodwill with the resistance members and make them feel confident enough that they can actually succeed. Once they liberate the colony, they learn that Sedona has actually been taken by an Aslanti ship, and the leading theory is that she's been taken off-planet back to the Aslanti Empire. However, it is suggested that the player characters investigate the crash site, where Sedona had been conducting some of her research, including into a unusual piece of technology that was recovered from the crash, but was taken by the Aslanti. In the meantime, as the characters go to do that, the locals in the colony actually offer or are able to help upgrade the player character ships to make it a little bit beefier for something much later on. After the characters liberate the colony, again, the next step is to investigate the crash site of the Royal Venture, which they come across. There's like a bay door that's open and allowing access into the ship, and they just sort of go through. There's a few encounters in there with a few sort of local types of fauna, and as well as some space zombies. And I'm going to be honest, I really love the idea of space zombies. They're ones from the original ship itself when it crashed hundreds of years ago. The technology, as well as anything that they were sort of experimenting on, went haywire and reanimated their corpses. So again, just something that I think is pretty cool. At the end of the day, the player characters hopefully are able to defeat or drive off the Aeon Guard members that have been left on the planet, and that's where they learn a little bit of information about why the Aslanti are here, including the fact that they're looking for the rune drive, the experimental drive that the ship had contained within it, and that Sedona has actually been taken away to a prison moon called Golta in Aslanti space. So that's sort of the setup for the second adventure. This adventure concludes with the Barazad, the ship here from the inside cover, returning to the planet itself after doing sort of just a mission, sort of scanning and learning what they can about the star system that Nacondas is part of. And then the ship battle sort of ends the adventure. So the adventure itself is actually bookmarked by like some space battles, which is absolutely fine. I really like the idea of space battles. I just haven't had a chance to really run it yet, or still trying to wrap my head around a little bit of how it works. But I still think it's actually a pretty cool concept. And that's the adventure. So the characters are sent to deliver supplies, find the planet's been sort of annexed, and then go through the process of taking it back, only to discover that their close friend has been captured. But that's not all that's in this book either. There's actually still quite a bit of information in here as well for some other stuff. So you actually have a detailed write-up on the Nacondas colony itself, which I think is, again, just really great information to have. So if the characters, again, if you want to have them sort of hang around or come back at some point afterwards, after the adventure takes place, this kind of describes things as it was either before the Aslanti appeared or essentially after it. So when like their garrison and stuff has been sort of dismantled, and gives a nice detailed map. Again, an excellent write-up. Now, one thing that I would actually consider is the idea of actually running just some role-playing encounters prior to the beginning of the adventure itself that might take place on the planet. If the characters are delivering supplies, for example, and doing so to a planet where one of their close friends happens to inhabit, then it might make sense that they're sort of familiar with the region. You don't necessarily have to do that either. Not that they would necessarily know everybody either, since they're just sort of dropping off supplies. But it might not be a bad idea if you want to make things feel a little bit more fleshed out, I guess, if you want to have there be more of an emotional investment for the players to make sure that this planet and this colony are liberated from the would-be oppressors. It's an idea, at least. It's so just maybe something to think about. What's also really cool is there's a brand new character theme included in this book, and this is the Colonists Theme. So this just gives you, again, just some options for player characters. So you could have one of the characters, or several of the characters in the party, for example, could be colonists from this planet that either join the player characters, or you could even just kind of split things up and have the colonists on the planet when things go haywire, and have the rest of the players coming afterwards. But that's something you'd have to kind of work out with your group. But again, just sort of an idea to throw out there. Another great thing about this theme being included, though, is if any of the player characters end up dying over the course of the adventure, having someone make a colonist would be an easy and logical way to sort of replace them. Just have someone that's a part of the resistance end up joining the group. So I like the fact that they included that in here. There's also a chapter on the Aslanti Star Empire ships, including some of their technology, like their drift stasis units, the Aeon Com, and the auto-destruct system, which basically whenever any of their ships are reduced to zero, or the majority of their ships, I should say, are reduced to zero, then essentially they self-destruct, leaving like no survivors, so that there's no prisoners, and destroying enough of their technology that people can't sort of steal things from it. So sort of an interesting thing there. And the ships included actually go beyond just the lower levels here, like the the first, second, third level, or third tier, I guess you could say, that you may expect to be encountering within these adventures. This goes pretty much all the way up to the Sovereign Vindicator, this bad boy right here, which is a tier 18 ship. So it's really cool that they include that as well. And then finally, or I guess not finally, but semi-finally, you have the Alien Archive. So this gives you just some new creatures to use in your Starfinder game. Several of them are included in the adventure itself. For example, the Hobgars are in here as well, and during the time when the characters are sort of engaged in their guerrilla tactics, one of the things that they can actually do is free a bunch of these things to wreak havoc on the Aeon Guard that are there. But there's also some things that weren't in the adventure, but just to kind of flesh out you know, the world itself, and provide some other encounters if you wanted to, if the characters sort of went off script a little bit, or if they kind of hang around the planet afterwards, or you just want something sort of in between this adventure and the second part of the adventure. It gives you some options there. It also has the Indefian, which is kind of like a shape-changing type of creature, but it also gives the racial traits for it. So in addition to having the character theme, you can actually also get a completely new playable race as well, which I think is, again, something that's really just a nice little extra to have in these products. So really impressed by that. And then you just have this sort of ooze cloud thing. And then you have the Aslanti adjunct security robot. And I don't know why, but the first time I saw this, all I could think of is like Johnny 5 mixed with like General Grievous, and I don't know why I thought that, but that's just the image that came to my mind, which maybe says a lot more about me than I want to explore, but really, really cool looking robot as well. Then you got the Synapse Worm, you got the Thermatrod. Again, just some really interesting creatures that they have in there. And then finally, just some brief information on the overall world of Nacondas, including like its atmosphere, its day cycle, how many days are in a year, sort of thing, and just some, again, general information on it as well. And then sort of a preview for some other things to come up. And on the back chapter, or on the back page here, you have the inside of the ship from the front cover, just in case the players are able to somehow like take it over. So there you go. That is the Reach of Empire, the first book in the 3-part series for the Against the Aeon Throne storyline. And I really like this book. I actually like it so much that I contacted my local game store, and they are currently holding the second and third parts for me. So I'm hoping to pick that up within the next few days, just waiting for some money to come in, and then I will be getting the rest of that series. I actually also like it enough that this is the adventure that I want to run. I actually want to run all 3 parts of the storyline for the group that I'm looking to start up in the very near future. That's why when I ran my impromptu session, I made sure that Sedona was actually a part of it. Now, speaking of her, there are options for each of the character themes to explain how they know her, and it is some thorough information, and they are interesting ideas, and I have to say I like pretty much all of them. The one thing that I would suggest, and the thing that I'm going to do, and that I already sort of set up for, is that I don't plan on having every single character have this sort of major background event with her, only because they may be different enough that it seems almost like too coincidental that everyone in the group knows her through various things in their background. So the way that I plan on doing it is having a few of the players actually like directly knowing her, and everybody else in the group meeting her through those other player characters. One of the options that it says in the book itself, so this isn't something that I'm making up myself, but one of the things it suggests in the book is that if you don't want everyone to be connected individually, then she could be the one that helped the characters purchase the ship that they start off with. And so that's kind of what I want to do. Have a couple of the characters really know her personally, and have the rest of them know her as the individual who helped them get their ship, and essentially sort of build into the background that they've made this run to the colony at least a couple of times, even if they don't really interact with too many people, like drop the stuff off and leave. They would at least know her enough from that. So overall, I think there's a lot of great value in this book. You know, a lot of adventures are content just to have like the adventures and the creatures that are contained within the adventure, and not necessarily a whole lot more than that. And the fact that you get not only the adventure, but you get some setting information for this newly colonized world, as well as, you know, some interesting ships to go up against, you know, a brand new, like, well, not brand new, but a group of enemies that, you know, are obviously seem to be very interesting. Like, I love the idea of the Aslanti Star Empire. I want to see more of them. I'm really interested to see what other things that they do as the adventure progresses. Like right now, the basic premise is that there's one sort of higher ranking member of the Aslanti Empire that's doing all the stuff that happens here sort of without the notice of, or without the knowledge of others in his organization. So it's sort of something that he's going off script for, and potentially taking some personal risk there. So I'd like to see sort of where this goes. Ultimately, I highly recommend this adventure. Again, it's the one that I want to run. I'm looking to get all the other chapters in it, and I think that this is a pretty decent introductory chapter for anyone who's new and looking to get into the Starfinder role-playing game. So anyway, those are my thoughts. Again, if you're into Starfinder, if you don't have this already and you're looking for a decent adventure, then I can't recommend this one enough. I think it's really fantastic. Anyway, I want to thank you guys very much for watching, and in the comments below, let me know if you've actually run through part of or all of this module. Let me know how that went for you. What some of the events may have been that you guys did in your games if you ran through this. And if you have started this or have completely gone through it, let me know what the Game Master decided in terms of how Sedona was integrated into the character's background, because I'd be interested to see how that goes, or how other groups have handled that. Anyway, thank you guys very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you next time. Take care.